Great. Well, thank you so much. So, Morgan Morris, so you are a seasonal garden coach. So you're in the business. Tell us about Lovin' Carrots and tell us about how this all got started and what your life is like as a garden coach.
Okay, well, thank you guys for having me. Lovin' Carrots got started really just because me and my partner Meredith wanted to grow food in DC. We both have an agrarian background, and we found that there was a demand for vegetable gardens that wasn't being met well by the nurseries and traditional landscapers. So we rented a truck and started putting in gardens. I think our first garden was in Northwest. And then following that, we realized there's a huge maintenance gap. Once you put in the garden, who's going to take care of it? So we came up with a coaching and maintenance program where we work closely with our customers through a season. If they want to do the coaching program, we come for a scheduled time for 2 hours and work with them in the garden, everything from seeding to harvesting to crop rotations, soil management. We have a composting program where we can use their table scraps and the garden scraps to try to create a whole loop of nutrition in their households. And yeah, through that, we have a lot of graduates who are doing it themselves now. And then we have people who opt just to do the maintenance program where we just come and it's more like a CSA. They get like a CSA box once a week or twice a week, depending on the size of the garden. And it's just straight from their backyard, so it's pretty much 0 mile food, which is, I think, kind of unique. But yeah, there's a huge growing demand. We're working towards doing bigger projects, bigger farms in the communities, working with developers and local governments, school systems. So it's really just kind of finding our way.
So there's an increasing demand for knowledgeable garden coaches.
Yeah, definitely.
You're hiring?
Yeah, we are hiring. If you have urban agricultural experience, there seems to be a gap in the knowledge of generations. Like my grandparents grew up with Victory Gardens, and I was lucky enough to grow up as my mom's a landscape architect, so she forced me out there. But there's a large gap in knowledge gap in how to grow food, and people are really hungry for that right now, especially people of, I think, my generation, early 30s, starting new families. They want to do right by their children and be nutritional and be healthy. So it's good. It's a good time to be growing gardens.
So talk to me a little bit about, so if I called you up and had you come out and I was interested in taking my whatever plot of land, would you assess the land and the soil, and would you make recommendations on what would be good for me to grow? Or like I used to have a garden in the front yard and I tried to grow corn and the squirrels took it all. So how do you deal with some of the urban foragers that are out there?
So urban foragers are a huge issue. Blueberries are amazing, but they're not going to last unless you build a complicated net system around them. But we kind of, the first start of the process is a consultation where we go to the people's houses, check sunlight readings, take a soil sample immediately, looking for lead or other heavy metals in the soil primarily. DC is a swamp, we got clay, so we always amend soils pretty much. Then when we go to build a garden, we specialize in raised beds with drip irrigation systems. That's kind of our bread and butter. That's what we focus on. So we'll install that. We have a crop list. We grow somewhere over 400 different varieties of vegetables. So we'll provide that list to the customer, and they kind of just check off what they want. And they give a range of like, I'm growing a garden because I want tomatoes. So that'll be the focus of the garden. And through the seasons, tomatoes is one season. Then they'll also say, I want kale, or I want cabbage, or collard greens. So that'll be spring, fall crops, and we kind of just go from there and work the garden around. It's always a process to learn how to integrate the garden into the kitchen. So we're pretty hands-on with our customers, a lot of feedback, a lot of emails back and forth to make sure that they're getting what they want out of the garden and it's getting used.
So if I were I can't imagine, Rome wasn't built in a day, and you can't take soil that's been out of production for a long time and turn it into full yield in a season. Are you counseling patients to your clients? How do you talk to them about like taking garden land that hasn't been in production, and what's the time frame to getting to a place of full productivity?
Well, with raised beds, we bring in a lot of soil. We do composting. So we make a soil mix that we treat the soil pretty heavily if we have to, so that we do have pretty good yields first season. But I think a lot of what we do is education about the true value of food and how hard it is in urban environments and in general to grow food. So our customers, especially the ones that are really engaged, really get a good sense of how hard it is to produce a tomato versus a carrot versus leafy greens and lettuces and things like that. So they really start to get the true value of food. That then they start to understand like all the inputs that go into it, and it, I think, hopefully changes their perspective when they go to the grocery store, when they go to a restaurant, because they can understand how, what that carrot went through that's on the shelf.
Great.